Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Healthy Living Central Florida. I'm your host, Gina Horan. Well, if you're like me, your phone is starting to blow up with all the insurance shenanigans going on, telling you if you should join, if you shouldn't, what's going on with your insurance. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Are you going to lose it? I'm about to lose my mind trying to think about all of it. So today we have an expert. Robert Buckmann is here to help us muddle through all this insurance business. What's going on, Robert? Very nice to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be had. Hi, Gina.
Hi. So give us, before we get into all of this, please give us a little bit of your background, where you work, what you do, how you got into the insurance game.
Sure. So I'm an insurance agent. This will be my 13th enrollment. I actually started when the ACA started, or what some people call the marketplace or Obamacare.
Okay.
So that was good for me because I started at the same time as everybody else. I work for an agency called Mid-Florida Agencies. We have multiple locations here in Central Florida. I personally have an office in Eustis, but I also have an office in the Villages. So I can do anybody in the state of Florida. I can help anyone in the state of Florida. It's the only state I write in. And not only do I do the marketplace or Obamacare, but I also do Medicare, small group, dental, things like that.
So you said you've been doing this for 13 years, which is great. Talk about just a little bit about why you started, doing insurance and what you were doing before that.
Right. So I was a communications technician for most of my life. And in 2010, I was laid off. And my daughter was 1 year old. So I told my wife that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I stayed home with my daughter for a couple of years. And my wife worked for corporate Blue Cross. She was an employee. She was a network manager for them. And she had heard some of the bigwigs talking about how it would be a good time to be a health insurance agent with Obamacare or the ACA coming out. And she thought I would be good at it. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I would be something that I would like to do. And so I went and got my license. I was very picky about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, and just found a good fit with Mid-Florida Agencies, and I like it.
Awesome. So, Robert, just the word insurance either makes, me or most people just gloss over and check their phone for like cat videos, or just get very frustrated and not even want to do it. I can imagine that. While people maybe can't afford insurance, I think a lot of people, it's so overwhelming that they don't even begin to start to go online and try to figure it all out. So I'd love to start with sort of how to mitigate the confusion, but also right now, insurance is a big deal. Talk about that.
Well, first of all, I'm a very big believer in finding a local agent. It doesn't have to be me. That would be great if it was, but It doesn't have to be me, only because a local agent's going to know about the doctor networks in the area. They're going to be very comfortable with the plans that are in this area, because every area has different plans depending on what zip code, even depending on what state you're in. So I feel like it's overwhelming because people don't do this for a living. This is something they're doing once. It's kind of like doing your taxes. Well, if you're just a single person with very simple taxes, that might be fine. But if you're more complicated, where you own multiple homes, maybe you own a business, then it starts getting really complicated. And do you want to be doing that yourself? No. You probably want to find a trusted tax person. And that's kind of how I feel about the health insurance. Also, it's overwhelming because there's so many plans out there and there's so many little nuances. And again, that's why it's important to find a local agent. When you call the marketplace to have them help you, that is a data entry clerk. That is not a health insurance agent that is helping you.
If you can get them on the phone, right?
Well, when it gets to enrollment, it gets a little busier and a little bit harder. Sure. But the problem is again, they're just asking you the next question and typing in the answer that you provide them. They don't know anything about the plans. They don't know anything about the networks. And so you're kind of like driving in the dark with no lights on, right? And that's how I look at it. And certainly if you're doing it yourself, probably even worse. So again, that's why a local agent can really help. And I usually, when people ask me if they're in another state, because again, I don't do another state, if my clients move away, I'll say, try to find someone with at least 5 years experience. At least 5 years experience, because that's somebody who's done enough of them to have enough experience to really lead you the right way. A lot of agents don't want to touch the ACA or the marketplace because they don't do enough of it. And if you're only doing 15, 20 policies a year, you could really hurt somebody. They would owe a lot of money at the end of the year at tax time if you're not doing it correctly, if you're not answering the questions properly. And certainly if someone's doing it themselves, what a lot of people tend to do is they're shopping based on price, like a lot of people do. And that plan that you sign up for might not even have any doctors in this area that take that plan. Or, you're looking for something that's going to cover certain things, and then you find out you got a giant deductible or something else that you're going to have to meet before the plan really covers you. So, that's why when you hear a lot of complaints about the marketplace or things like that, it's usually coming from those areas, in my opinion.
Well, what I did at first, which is probably pretty naive, is that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have it for my tax deduction. So I just went on, and also, I qualified for ACA. So I just went on and was like, okay, here, click, click, click. Thank you very much. And then every year they'll say, oh, are you cool with repeating what you just did? And I'm like, yep, because it's overwhelming and maybe I'm a little lazy. So I feel like, seriously, because it's like, who wants to deal with all that stuff? So I love the fact that you're here helping people and you're here to help people with ACA, because listen, I mean, it's, again, I'm going to repeat this all day, but it is so overwhelming, especially if you're by yourself, a 1099er, or just me, who's a girl who has, a job. My mom is a little more difficult because she has United and then I think Medicaid or something combo.
Medicare, so she's going to be on Medicare. I find Medicare to be simpler because you really only have 3 choices. The ACA is really the wild, wild west. There are so many scenarios and so many plans. Again, usually I used to manage a couple of offices, and when I would train agents, I would train them on Medicare first just to get their footing under them, and then we would go to the ACA. And I don't claim to know everything, but I've done probably about 8,000 applications on the marketplace at this point in the 12 years. And there's nothing coming at me that I haven't seen at this point.
Well, that's 11,999 more than I've done, and probably most people. So we appreciate your expertise, honestly. All right, so what's coming down the pike? What is going on right now? What's going to happen? We're filming this right now, the beginning of November, but after this goes out, it will be November, and we will definitely know what's happening. What's going on November 1st and into January of 2025-26? So
November 1st, that's when you can reapply for the marketplace or apply if you don't have insurance. That's when you can see the subsidy amounts. So I've had a lot of more calls than I normally do about people concerned about that, because there's so much information out there telling them that their prices are going to go up and this and that. I can't speak to that yet, only because I haven't seen it.
Ooh, so it's like a big reveal.
Yeah, but it's probably going to be negative, because one of the things that's going away this year is the enhanced tax credits. So these things did not exist when it started with Obama and then Trump won. This all happened after COVID. They passed a couple of bills that gave people enhanced tax credits. And what did that really do? It lowered the cost of insurance for most people. It also made more people eligible. So there used to be hard caps on the plans themselves as far as income. So if you were just a single person, there would be a cap of how much money that you could make during the year, whether you qualified for a subsidy to lower the cost of the insurance.
Okay.
That went away during those bills, and then it was more of a kind of a sliding scale. So there were people, you could be a couple who was making $130,000 who would not have been eligible previously. Now you're eligible for some subsidies, and it really lowered the cost for insurance. And you saw the amount of people who were insured really skyrocket, in my opinion, and go way up. And there were a lot more people because, it was COVID, and they wanted more people, obviously, to have insurance.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was the premise of that. That is all supposed to sunset at the end of this year. So when they passed the big bill that they just passed, that did not extend the subsidies, and that's kind of what the budget showdown right now is about.
Right.
Is about the enhanced subsidies.
Correct. So for me, I guess I was told that now when I reapply or apply, that I have to give my my salary this time, or has that always been? I'm not really sure. What are the new things that we're going to have to do when we fill out the form, or when I call you, Robert?
So that's always been the case. So what you're doing at this time of the year is you're making a prediction on your income for next year. For some people, that's easy. If you're on a fixed income, you could get pretty close, right? But for other people, like a realtor, well, you don't know what you're going to make.
That's true.
Right? No clue, right?
Yep.
So the nice thing is you can adjust income at any time during the year. But how this really works is you're making your prediction. So let's just say we were sitting together on November 1st. You made your income prediction. Well, this is going to play out when you file your taxes in spring of 2027 for tax year 2026.
Okay.
Okay. And so what'll happen is they'll look at your prediction and there'll be an adjustment made. There's always an adjustment made. So unless, again, you're on a fixed income, nobody gets it right. And there's always an adjustment, but you just don't want to be way off. You don't want to say, hey, I'm going to make 50,000 and then you make 130,000 because you're going to owe a lot of money to the government because you underpredicted your income. They're not punishing you for being off. You're just giving back the money that you shouldn't have received. The opposite is also true. If you predicted 60,000 and you made 50,000, well, now the opposite's true. Now the government will owe you money, and they'll do that in the form of tax credits.
And it all comes back in the tax credit.
Always plays out at tax time.
And we should get an accountant, I say. Because
I have accountants I recommend to my clients all the time because, again, I want that information to be accurate. I really spend a lot of time explaining this to my clients because, again, real ramifications. And that's where some of the fraud comes in, is that they talk to somebody who is maybe in a different part of the state or maybe not even in the state, and they're helping them. Well, they will artificially decrease the client's income to give them a lower price. So I always want people to understand the price is the price. If you enter the information exactly the same, it doesn't matter whether you're talking to the marketplace, an agent, you're doing it yourself, it's the same price. But what those agents will do is they'll lower your income to make it look cheaper so that you'll go with them. And remember, you're not going to find this out for about a year and a half.
Right, or something happens.
Right.
Robert, this is all overwhelming, but you're making it sound at least palpable. So I appreciate you. We're going to come back with a little more information from Robert Buckmann, insurance specialist, and try to get through all this craziness. Right? Sorry. When we come back, don't go anywhere. Hey everyone, welcome back. We're here with Robert Buckmann talking about insurance, and it used to kind of glaze over my head, but you know what? It's very important right now because there's so many things changing. So we were talking about auto renew before, which is what I've always done. Why is that okay, or should we really be focusing on exactly what we need to do this time?
Well, I don't feel like anybody should auto renew. You should at least always take the time to go through your application. They do ask some new questions from time to time. Plus, you really want to look at what your income is. If I asked you, hey, what did you put in your application for income last year? 99% of the people have no idea they don't remember what they put in there. Right. So it's just a good idea to go in, update it to see what's changed. And again, it doesn't take long, especially again, if you're working with an agent. When I book those appointments, they're typically phone appointments, and I book a half an hour, and that's more than enough time to spend to update someone's application.
Okay, very worthwhile 30 minutes.
Right. And the other part, if you don't mind me saying too, is also the plans change. So the plan that you were on this current year might be different next year. And so you also want to take a look at that because you may want to switch your plan. When you auto renew, you're on the same plan, and you may not find out the ramifications of that until you're already into the new year, and you cannot switch your plan once open enrollment or annual enrollment is over.
Right.
So that's also good to just review those as well.
And we talked earlier, we're both around the same age, like 40 plus, 18 or 19. But that is relevant because I have a big birthday next year. Does it still matter your age? Does it still matter if you're male or female? Does it still matter, pre-condition? Like, does any of this stuff still matter? Are we good to go?
No, those are all great questions, and I get those all the time. So first of all, there's two pieces to this. There's two components. First of all, there's your rate. Your rate is only based on three things, at least with Florida Blue, which I represent.
Okay.
It's based on your age, your birth date, your zip code, and your smoking status or your tobacco status. So zip code makes a difference because someone who is in like Miami or Tampa, they would pay more than someone who's in Central Florida because healthcare cost more in those areas. And so, again, the plans cost more in those areas. Obviously, your age is a factor. The closer you get into 65, the more you're going to pay. And a tobacco user pays 1.5 times more than just a regular person. I don't see as much of that anymore because a lot of people who smoke tobacco are now Medicare or older. So again, I don't see that as prevalent as much. That's your rate. And then your subsidy is based on all kinds of information. So it's based on your family size, it's based on your income, it's also based on your age. And that what the subsidy is how much money the government is going to give you towards your health insurance plan. So you may have a plan that costs $800, the government's going to give you $300, and now you owe $500 for your plan. That's how that works.
Well, a lot of people are scared because I guess it's been coming out, like I said, on my phone every 5 minutes. It's like, hey, open enrollment. Oh my gosh, the boogeyman's coming for all your insurance. I mean, you just don't know yet, right? Is it going to double, triple? It's up to the marketplace, or how does that work?
Sure. So, and I just wanted to address one other question about pre-existing conditions, because I get asked that as well. So Florida Blue basically follows the marketplace. There is no plans that I sell or that I'm aware of being sold that aren't grandfathered that ask any health questions at all.
So that's good.
Right, because that enabled a lot more people to get insurance. And I would tell you that in the beginning, when I first started doing this, I mean, I had people weeping and hugging me because they hadn't been able to get insurance. So for me, that's a big plus for the law in that it eliminated the pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Made it affordable for a lot of people, too.
Of course, and it's scary, and you just never know, and then it just kind of pushes you out, and you feel hopeless. And I've met a lot of people like that, and it's really, really scary.
Right. And through no fault of their own, because some people will say, well, it's a lifestyle, but a lot of it's genetic as well.
Right.
And that's, you can't do anything about that.
You cannot. So there is a push towards telehealth and preventative care. Does that have anything to do with insurance at all? Or, let's say that I guess that goes with pre-existing and your lifestyle, but really it's only the tobacco. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, just the tobacco users. So again, the Florida Blue plans do encourage preventative medicine. So they make generic meds very affordable on most plans. Anything that's considered wellness is typically covered at no cost. So things like a mammogram or a pap smear or, a colonoscopy so many years, depending on your age. Those are all things that Blue typically promotes. And again, it's either at a low cost or no cost.
And so let's talk about like a sort of an insider tip. I know we're going, but please just, rewind and say it again because, it's kind of overwhelming. What is like one insider tip that you would give to me if I was saying, okay, Robert, I'm coming into your office. I'm going to sit down. Here's my insurance now. What should I do to cross over to, let's say, Florida Blue or any other plan?
Well, the first question I always ask any of my clients is, what is your income prediction for next year? Because that kind of steers the conversation. If you are between 100 and 200% of the poverty level, there is what they call cost sharing. So what it'll do is, someone who's 100 to 150% of the poverty level, and again, that's based on your family size. And when I say family size, that's who's going to be on your tax return. Okay, that turns a silver plan into like a platinum plan. So what does that do for you? It typically gives you no deductible. It lowers your copays on things like primary doctors, specialists, lab work, generic meds, things of that nature. If you're between 150 and 200% of the poverty level, then it turns the silver plan more into a gold level. It still does a lot of those things, but now the copays are a little bit higher, just not quite the benefits. So the sweet spot is in that 100 to 200% of the poverty level, and that's the first thing I determine right out of the gate, because that's really going to steer what kind of plan we're going to recommend. If that's not you, right, well, then we're going to talk about plans. So before I even start an application with somebody, the first thing that we do is I go into an estimator tool. I punch in your information, we put in your income prediction, and then we look at the cost of the plans and what's the best fit for you. That also is determined by if you have doctors who are important to you. We want to make sure that they're in the network. If you're taking medications, typically the ones I'm more concerned about are more the brand drugs or more the expensive drugs. Well, we want to make sure whatever plan you go on is going to cover those at a reasonable amount, right? I don't like surprises. So
no one does, especially in this genre,
Right. And so we come to, we figure out what plan we're going to put you on before I even take you onto the marketplace. And then I essentially hold your hand. We go through the marketplace together. I ask you the same questions that they would. I put in your answers. Maybe there's a little bit of back and forth because you're confused about a question or you're not sure what to put. Again, one of those which we've addressed before we started was income. What's income, Robert? Does this count as income? Does that count as income? Again, it depends on what you're doing. And I always try to give the disqualifier of I am not a tax attorney.
Right.
I do not. Sure. Right. I can tell you what I believe to be true, but if you are asking me some specific tax questions, I would refer you to your tax person. Okay. And so anyway, we want to
having both of you, I think, would be good.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. A good tax person pays for themselves, to be quite honest, because they know a lot of the nuances. Kind of like me, really, is on the health insurance side. They know a lot of the nuances and the rules that have come out, and so again, well worth their money. They usually will save you more than the money that you're paying them, in most cases.
So, Robert, there are deadlines. What are the deadlines for like open enrollment, first of the year? What's going on with that? What are the...
Sure. So, well, first Medicare is October 15th to December 7th. And then they have another, that's annual enrollment. And then open enrollment is the first 3 months of the year. So if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan and you want to switch to another Medicare Advantage plan, you can do that, or you can switch from an Advantage plan back to original Medicare with a drug plan. Okay.
So I'm on one plan, and I told you I was bronze earlier, and I just keep doing auto renew. Sorry, I know I'm lazy, but I'm going to try not to do that anymore. So what are my deadlines if I want to come over and switch over to your, get your help?
So for people who are on the marketplace,
Yeah.
the deadline for January 1st is December 15th. So December 15th is the deadline for Jan 1, and January 15th is the total deadline. Once you get past January 15th, that is it.
There's
the
no
only way
more,
that you
okay.
can get insurance at that point is a special election. What's a special election? Well, if you moved here from another state and lost your insurance, maybe you've left your employer and you're no longer eligible for that insurance through COBRA or something, that's a special enrollment. Just always remember that most special enrollments give you 60 days from the moment you lose your insurance. So you only have a 60-day window to sign up. Again, all other kinds of things, divorce,
Yeah.
birth of a child. So sometimes people call, it's always so funny. I have dads call me from the delivery room. The baby has just been born and they're like, I got to add my son to the insurance. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. First of all, I'm glad you called me. Congratulations.
Yeah, right.
But that doesn't work that way. You have 60 days to get the child signed up from the date of birth, and it will retro back to the date of birth.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll be calling you because I hate missing deadlines.
Now, people who are off the marketplace, the deadline is December 31st. So if you're off market, you have until December 31st to sign up for an off market plan.
Okay, perfect. We'll just put a pin in that and come right back. More with Robert Buckmann and other types of insurance for people that maybe make a little more, or HSA accounts, which I still have no clue what it is, but we have him here. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we're back talking insurance with Robert Buckmann. So a couple things outside of the marketplace or ACA. What about small businesses, employers that employ maybe 10 to 20 people, or freelancers like our producer Cindy over there? What are some of the options for those two things?
Well, so small group, which is under 50,
Yeah.
they wouldn't go on to the marketplace. So
Right.
they would offer group insurance. I've seen insurance including Medicare supplements, the Medicare Part B premium, all are going up. So again,
They are going up.
Yeah, I would expect that as well. The group I just did, I do a couple small groups. Theirs just went up about 25%. People who are off the market. So what is considered off the market?
Yeah, what is that?
Right. So I would only put you on the marketplace if you qualified for a subsidy. If you don't qualify for a subsidy, then there's no point in going onto the marketplace because, again, that's to get the money to help you pay for your insurance. So what I noticed so far this year, and including for myself,
Yeah.
is that those rates seem to have gone up 26%.
26%.
Right, off
Yeah.
the market. And what you want to understand, too, is the plans are the same whether they're on the market or off the market. Now, Blue does offer some plans that are off market only, but most of the plans are offered on both sides. So the plan's not really changing. Again, it's really just about the money. And so a lot of times when I have somebody, again, self-employed, a realtor,
Sure.
if I have somebody who's living on investment income, right? Well, we don't know what that will be.
Well, and that's a lot because, there's a lot of retirees here. So
Right.
that must be hundreds of people living
Right.
off their investments. How does that work?
Well, depending on how much they're earning, right? So if they're a super crazy high earner, well, I'm not putting them on the marketplace. But
Right.
if they're close to the thresholds, or I'm not sure whether they're going to get a subsidy, the advantage of doing it on the marketplace is that, let's say I do the application here in November and we put their income in and it's above the threshold and they don't get a subsidy. But something happens during the year next year. Because remember, you're making a prediction for 2026.
Right. I keep forgetting it's 20. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And their investments don't do well, or the market tanks, or anything like that, right? If their income then comes in under the threshold, because they did their application on the marketplace, they'll get that at tax time in the form of the tax credits because, again, they did it on the marketplace. So it's kind of a safety valve kind of at the end. If you don't do it on the marketplace and your income came below, you don't get anything because you didn't do it on the marketplace. So again, not for everybody. It's kind of a per person type of thing, whether I recommend that or not. Just depends on how close to the edge. And also depends on what other income you may have, because even somebody who's living on some investment income, they may have other income and they're not even close anyway.
But you cater to everyone, right? Like it doesn't have just to be the marketplace people like me or my mom who's on, Medicare. There are people out there who, either make a decent living or they're freelancers or self-employed. And you talked to me last year, which a great conversation about the HSA. What is that? You said that actually can be very beneficial for who, Robert?
Right. So I love HSAs.
Okay.
I am on an HSA.
Talk about that.
Right. So first of all, somebody who qualifies for that silver range we talked about, 100 to 200%, I'm not going to recommend an HSA because the advantage of going on those type of plans is more advantageous than going on an HSA.
Okay.
But how an HSA works is you're allowed, actually investment people say this is the best investment tool you can have. So what you're supposed to do is put money into an HSA account.
Mm-hmm. It's called a health savings account?
That's
correct.
what
It's called? Okay.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
There's limits based on your age and also your family size.
Sure.
So like for myself, this current year, I'm a family of 3. So when you're 2 or more, and we've already determined that I'm older than...
right.
So I can't remember if 50 or 55. But anyway, right. I was allowed to put $9,550 into an HSA account.
Wow, okay.
So what that does for me is that comes off of my income. So if I had made $100,000 this year and I fully funded at $9,550. Well, now my taxable income is $90,450.
Okay.
So that's the first benefit. Second benefit is you can invest that money in the account, and that grows tax-free. Okay, and then at some point down the road, you can take that money out and use it for health-related things. It doesn't have to be necessarily health co-pays or stuff on health insurance. It could be things you buy at a Walgreens, Band-Aids or aspirin or things of that nature.
Sure.
And as long as you're taking it out for something health-related, then there is no tax ramifications. I even have some clients, what they'll do is they will save their receipts over the period of multiple years, and then you can go back and get reimbursed. So again, so the reason that they say that's a great plan is it's a triple win. You're putting it in pre-tax, it's growing tax-free, and then you're taking it out without any tax ramifications. And what they actually tell you to do is not even to use it until you get to be older, because once you get to be 65, you can no longer contribute to an HSA. And for myself, I've been growing it now over multiple years, and I'm saving it for when I hit Medicare, because I can use that to pay for my Medicare Part B premiums, I can use it to pay for my drug premiums, and of course any co-pays. And that's where I'm going to get my bang for the buck out of that kind of a plan.
Wow, it's all so overwhelming, but but you do put it, you put it in perfect words so that at least, the layman can understand it. I appreciate that. Is there anything else that you want to tell our one viewer and all the listeners about health insurance this year, and just sort of what to brace for, what to prepare for maybe, or just kind of, be in the loop?
Sure. So, and just one, you had asked me before if what was something I was excited about for this year.
Yes.
And kind of staying on the HSA theme, one of the things that they changed for this year is in the past you had to be on an HSA designated plan in order to contribute to an HSA. That is not the case for 2026. Now, as long as you're in a bronze plan, then you can put money in an HSA. So again, those usually have higher deductibles, higher out-of-pocket costs.
Yeah, that's what I have actually.
And again, as long as they meet that criteria, then you can put money in an HSA. It doesn't have to be an HSA plan. And again, moving forward, as far as the question you just asked me, I would just again urge anyone to seek out a local agent. Like I said, it doesn't have to be me, but local agents are excellent resources. And sometimes people, when they talk to me, they say, well, Robert, how much do you cost? I cost nothing. I'm zero. I'm the added bonus. And so what happens is that when you use someone like me, well, I'm your agent, right? Well, you can come to me anytime you have questions or need me. If you're having problems with a claim, I help with that. If you're like, hey, Robert, is there a good gastroenterologist that you recommend around here?
Really?
Sure, yeah.
You're like a one-stop shop. I didn't know that. I thought you were just the guy that did the insurance stuff, but you really are a person that people can turn to if they have any of these questions.
I try to be. And even, and again, I would love to tell you I can help every single person who comes to me, and that's just not the case.
Right.
So I don't like to just send people off into the wind. So I try to be a resource. I try to point them. Another misnomer that people think is that, I'm going to quit my job and just get Obamacare. Right? I hear that all the time. Right?
People say that.
No, yeah, people
Don't
say
do
that to
that.
me. Right? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You actually have to have a minimum amount of income in order to qualify for the marketplace. And so, but not everybody does. Some people, again, are having hard times. They don't make enough money. And so, so people will say, well, what happens if I don't meet the minimum threshold? Well, then the state considers you Medicaid. Now, whether you qualify for Medicaid is a separate subject.
Correct.
And I don't do Medicaid.
Right.
But what'll happen is if I do the app on the marketplace and they came back for a Medicaid determination, it will kick them over to Medicaid, and then that will determine what happens to them. I'm not a big on Medicaid. I think it's good for kids, and I think it's good for people who are on Medicare.
Yeah,
because it
like
makes
my 80-year-old mom who may have to, we don't know what the future holds for her. So, right? Correct?
Right. No, because there are plans that work with Medicaid and Medicare together, and they're excellent plans. But people who are not in that, and don't meet that criteria, what happens is it's hard to find someone who will take Medicaid. But even if you don't have insurance, you can always typically go to a community health center. They usually have those here in every city. I know there's one in Tavares. I believe there's one in Leesburg. So you can go to those places and get treated and get care. Again, there's a means test there. I'm not sure all the criteria that goes on with that. And of course, if you're eligible for Medicaid and you get Medicaid, well, at least you have Medicaid. So that's better than nothing, right?
Well, Robert, I feel a little smarter and a little more prepared for what's coming up, and I really appreciate your time today. How can we get a hold of you, by the way? Website, phone number?
Sure. I prefer people call me. I have a direct line. That number is 352-729-5384. Again, I'm local. I have an office in Eustis, and I have a couple offices in the Villages. Again, 352-729-5384. And I did want to wish my wife of 36 years happy birthday today.
Aw,
it is her birthday. I'm not going to say how old she is, but it is her birthday.
That's
so
so sweet.
Birthday.
Well, she's probably in our club, I'm guessing, so that's fine. We love that. Robert, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And maybe we'll go round 2 next year and see how everybody turns out.
Anytime you need me or have a question, I'm happy to come in.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, that does it for another edition of Healthy Living Central Florida. We'll see you next time.